All right, so we're going to take a look at this podcast Mothership video. It's titled Joe Rogan and Bill Maher may be the worst stand-up comedians ever. And I would just throw Tony Hinchcliffe in there, and I'd agree. Let's see what we got.
Put your hands together for Mr. Joe Rogan!
On this year, folks! I just want to touch him. Man. Breasts to a guy are like a light bulb to a moth, aren't they? Unbelievable things.
I got a question for all of you. Do you think that Joe Rogan and Bill Maher are the most overpaid and underfunny comics there will ever be on planet Earth by far? And look,
Well, like I said, you throw Tony Hinchcliffe on there, and I'm on board, dude. I mean, I believe I've heard Bill Maher do stand-up albums with no audience, okay? No audience, no laugh track, no music, nothing. Just him telling what he considers to be jokes into a, tape recorder. The guy is dog shit and absolutely full of himself, just like the rest of these guys. He belongs in Austin with them.
Look, I get it. Neither have been paid that money to be comics. Because at this point, people pay to see them like they pay to see their favorite actors at a Comic-Con. In fact, Bill Maher gets paid to do comedy on cruise ships, which is the most foul kind of environment, surrounded by geriatrics dumping their shit into the ocean. And look at Joe in this picture. I mean, Jesus Christ, Rogan takes steroids, does cold plunges in hyperbaric chambers and shit. To look like that, it's astounding how obsessed Rogan is working out, taking drugs and food that turns him into an alpha male, and he still manages to look worse than most middle-aged dads. And that Rolling Stone shirt kind of does an amazing job of hiding his belly bulge. The dude's got chicken.
Honestly, it just makes me think that somebody's still dressing this man. Right? Like, he just wakes up and puts on an outfit that his wife picked out. This isn't something that's well thought out. But at the same time, it doesn't take a lot of thought, dude.
Chicken legs and a dad bod. And are these two standing on their toes? Because both appear to be about 5 feet nothing. It's always great when Joe Rogan finds a kid his own size to play with. Honestly, I didn't realize Bill Maher was that short. It explains a lot though, doesn't it? Two hobbits. Joe needs to hold on to Bill or his giant head will cause him to topple. And I didn't know Rogan was supposed to be a comedian because he will always be that guy that made people eat bugs on TV to me. And to be frank, I'd rather eat bugs than listen to Joe Rogan.
Well, that's the thing. It's just another guy doing anything he can to be famous. Anything he can to be famous. And that includes embarrassing himself. Right? They spend all this time going on stage, embarrassing themselves because they're not funny, just to get a job that is simply, that in reverse, right? Tony Hinchcliffe did the same thing. The guy was ruthlessly mocked his entire career, so he gets a job where he gets to mock other people. And that's what he's doing. And that's exactly what Joe is doing as well. Well, that's what he was doing with Fear Factor.
Rogan's comedy specials. I will give it to Bill Maher, though. At least he had a heyday where he wasn't totally an ass. But yes, Bill is unfunny, but mediocre and unmemorable. He's always been that way. Joe Rogan's been unfunny for decades, yet he has achieved levels of awful that have become truly legendary. So having said that, they have never and will never be in the same league. So I'll give that to Bill, because Joe Rogan has technically been doing his version of stand-up for over 20 years and hasn't been funny the whole time. Joe was the least funny cast member in the 90s sitcom News Radio about 30 years ago. The dude's a lifelong hack. And as I mentioned before, Joe Rogan didn't make the big bucks from comedy per se. It was mainly due to the podcast that made him valuable in a financial sense. And
that is exactly how I feel about Andrew Schultz and Tim Dillon. I mean, Tony Hinchcliffe is right there too, but still not nearly as valuable, right? I mean, sure, Monday they got episode on fucking Netflix, but it's the last one, and then they're out of there. And I'll bet you anything, it doesn't happen again. I bet it doesn't happen again. But what's the excuse for these people having these elongated careers without really any skill? Like, how was Joe possibly becoming a good stand-up comedian with all this acting and TV hosting that he was doing? With all this UFC commentating? It just doesn't add up that while you were doing that, you were somehow also getting good at writing jokes. That doesn't add up. Just like Tony Hinchcliffe. How is he getting better at writing jokes? By hosting a show every week.
And yes, he got his first big start on the show News Radio with Phil Hartman in a supporting role. Then Joe made real money hosting Fear Factor. That's how he essentially got rich and was able to finance the Joe Rogan Experience, which, by the way, he basically stole the idea from Tom Green. Nonetheless,
100%.
JRE made him ultra wealthy, but not funny. So none of his wealth was a result from his stand-up comedy. I have to confess, Bill Maher used to crack me up because I do think he has some comedic talent, but he sure has become an annoying douche now.
Well, let's remember, too, we're living in an era where people think that somebody's skill and talent and value is represented by how much money they have. They think that because somebody has made a lot of money doing a thing or has a lot of money, they must be good at it. So you critique Joe Rogan and people will say that you're jealous that he's so rich. And it's like, no, you're missing the point. It's like, I'm mad at the fact that you're calling yourself a stand-up comedian when that isn't what made you relevant. I think the UFC had to finance like his second special because nobody wanted to do it. Like, it's not been good for him his whole career as a stand-up comedian, and it's all been the same. The jokes are basically the same every, 8 to 10 years that he drops a special. Let's see what else we got.
Now, it's like Maher is playing to what he thinks is paying, very similar to Marjorie Taylor Greene.
What's up? How we doing? You having fun? Having a rough week, man. I've been hearing the M word too much from my girlfriend, you know what I'm talking about? She brings up marriage a little bit too much, and it's, I can't even hear that word. I hear the word marriage, my brain just shuts off. It's like, marriage, click! Every word after marriage is... I don't think so. I'm like, that's like a contract. I signed this. I can't have sex with other girls for the rest of my life.
I mean, what is wrong with this guy? I swear there's some people, most people, in the world of Hollywood or the entertainment industry that purposefully only get into it because they're so desperate to sell their souls. Like, they don't give a fuck, dude. Give me all the money in the world and I don't care. I mean, look at this still right here. Joe Rogan's not possessed. Come on.
And I gotta buy you a ring. Like, that deal sucks. I know we fight a lot now, but if we got married, things would be different. That's how I feel, you know? You do, man. What are you thinking about?
I mean, this alone is losing me, dude. It's just losing me. Like, how does one keep talking about this or looking at it? I can't. You guys can. Go to Podcast Mothership, subscribe, like, all the stuff that you would do over here. And we'll see you in the next one.